Hey guys, it's Mitch. How's it going? Well, if you're reviewing 90s comics, you can only go so long before you better hit some bad girl cops or you're just being dishonest, really. We're taking a look today at 1993's Catwoman #1. So just before we get into it, if you enjoy the channel, if you feel like you might want to help out a little bit, go over and subscribe on my Patreon. Links are in the description, gives you early access to everything I do, helps out the channel, helps to buy new comics. So I feel like technically this isn't exactly a comic you would slot in the bad girl category, seeing as I feel like the bad girl comic movement kind of started a year or two after this. But this is definitely one of the things that kind of kicked things off. This and like Lady Death and Vampirella getting popular again. She, can't forget She, all that stuff. Which, I mean, on the one hand, isn't necessarily the worst thing. Like, one of the big focuses for the bad girl comics was, yeah, it was hot chicks, but they were kicking ass, right? I suppose that beats hot chicks being damsels in distress, you know? And then you had Image doing their whole thing with Witchblade and Fathom and whatever else Michael Turner wanted to draw. But for a bad girl comic, you need two things. You need a female protagonist and you need a horny penciler. And we've got those two things here with, of course, one of the longest standing Batman villains with Catwoman and with Jim Balent, guy who'd been around with DC for a few years when this picked up. He also did a little bit with First, from what I can see. But not a guy I was ever familiar with, really. I'd see his stuff in Wizard every once in a while. I go, no thank you. And of course, I never really read DC Comics when I was a kid. So this is just kind of a good opportunity to go back and say, okay, well, was there any good comics in this comic? There probably is, right? I mean, Liefeld didn't have anything to do with this, so odds are high. All right, so let's just get right into it. We can start with the cover. Big hero shot of our leading character. This is Catwoman. And, you know, it's a pretty good pose. It is very much a Jim Balent pose in that Jim Balent has kind of that Adam Hughes, Frank Cho thing where he just, you know, he digs drawing hot-looking women. I mean, I can't exactly fault him for that. Although in the interior, he will go out of his way to just go for as many gratuitous shots as he can. He doesn't have the skill of somebody like a Frank Cho or an Adam Hughes. That's fine. I'm pretty sure Jim Balent had a bit of a following just because he liked drawing boobs and he could do it reasonably well. Interesting on the cover here, though, in that Catwoman herself doesn't appear to be, like, you know, super busty. And when I think of Jim Balent drawings, I think of him doing the balloon tits, which I think he would do more as he got further into the series. And this is a series he stuck on for quite some time, actually. The Catwoman series stuck around for, I want to say, like 94 issues? Yeah, plus a 0. And Jim Balent drew 77 of those. So, I mean, like, that's pretty good and shows that the guy did have his fans. As an A-side, it bugs me when comics stop and, like, the mid-90s. It's like, come on, man, just push it to 100 and end there. Like, do the New Mutants thing. Like, Rob got that much right, at least. But anyway, yeah, it's a good figure, you know, well-proportioned. It's on a bit of a Dutch, and I've noticed that Jim Balent likes to do Dutch angles in this, which is nice. It's also a little bit embossed, but just a little bit. It's not like Supreme #1 where they're like jumping off the page. It's like if you were just looking, you'd be pretty sure it wasn't actually embossed. I guess it helps to make like the figure pop, that kind of thing, but it's like just a little bit. But yeah, decent cover at least to start with. Man, that's almost like a copy. Okay, so we're going to kick things off with a big old splash page. That's usually a good idea. This is going to be written by Joe Duffy, penciled by Jim Balent, inked by Dick Giordano. I have a tendency to think of Dick Giordano more as an editor than an inker, but, you know, like I said, I didn't buy too many DC comics back in the day. I think the only time I've seen Dick Giordano ink was, I want to say, in a Sandman storyline or two. So I tend to forget that he did that as well. But yeah, I gotta say, I'm not a fan of the inking job in this. I don't know if, you know, Dick Giordano might be pretty good. I feel like his style does not fit with Jim Balent, though. That might be what the deal is. But yeah, when you get another full figure splash from Jim Balent, that feels like it might have been a fleshed out sketch. Like he totally could have just drawn Catwoman in this pose and gone, okay, I should just put some background in behind this and make this my opening splash. So this is Catwoman breaking into a museum. I'm not fond of this version of Catwoman, this particular costume. I don't like the hair coming out the back and all that. But I mean, it's fine. You know, like, not everybody can draw like Adam Hughes. It's okay. So yeah, Catwoman is in this museum here, and she's here to steal some jewels. Surprise, surprise. Gets stopped by some security guards, and she's going to jump around and, you know, just take care of them. And like I said, we're going to get some instances of Jim Balent just kind of taking opportunities to throw in the gratuitous shot here or there. He doesn't go overboard with it, at least not at the beginning. But like I said earlier, you know, a bit of a Dutch angle, a low angle as well, which is a bit more than I was expecting, really. Another low angle here, and popping the figure out beyond the panel border. I like that, okay? And another one down here with very high angles. Like, I don't mind some of the angles that he's picking. Like I said, the finish isn't really there a lot of the time. The close-up on Catwoman looks pretty good. Everybody else they're looking pretty house-styly. So after she's wiped out everybody except the last security guard here, she distracts him by showing off her boobs because that's what Jim Balent wanted to draw, most likely. Only it turns out she was hiding her whip in her hair. It's like, oh, okay, man, it's 1993. You can get away with that, I guess. But, decent figures. They're okay. And, yeah, then she grabs her jewels that she came here for. It turns out what turned on the silent alarm was a mouse leaning up again. I don't know. That feels dumb to me. And then one more Dutch angle to end things on. Yeah, they're all over the place. Tilting this way and then back again for this one. So that's good. I don't always remember to do that myself, so it's nice to see it pointed out here. The actual finish, not super great. And it's going to get a little bit worse. Because it feels like a lot of the... I'm not going to go so far as to say inventiveness, but he's doing a little bit in terms of page layout. Like, it's just a little bit extra, which is nice. And then eventually he's just going to kind of lose that. Okay, so Catwoman gets away from the museum and immediately is confronted by a couple of guys in a nearby alley. It turns out one of these guys is kind of her handler. So we're finding out that Bane actually runs these streets, and Catwoman is kind of working for him. I'm not sure when this would have started, but, we're not too far off from the breaking of Batman, the Nightfall stuff. So it stands to reason that, having dispatched Batman, Bane is now establishing his territory. So the deal here is that Catwoman hands over... She's supposed to hand over, like, all of the jewels that she got from the museum job, and then she just gets paid out by Bane, like she's operating on spec or something. The art, it's mostly unimpressive, although he's doing a couple of interesting things. We're getting more of these Dutch angles. Even if the drawings aren't particularly special in any way, he's still trying a couple of things here and there, which is good. And, he's doing all sorts of panels floating all over the place. He's not sticking to a particular grid for the most part. Get a few borderless panels. He seems to like that. Get a bit of a tough angle here. Pretty high bird's eye view, and getting, the three figures standing here. It all looks pretty solid. Like, he's got some good fundamentals, really. Like, some good page design skills. It's just, I don't like his finish, like, at all. So the go-between guy, the middle manager guy, whatever, takes the jewels and just kind of wanders away. Catwoman has a bit of a disguise stashed here, so she just puts on a big floppy hat and a trench coat, and she's completely inconspicuous. The other guy here walks her back to her place, her hideout, her apartment, whatever you want to call it, and he seems to be more of her direct handler. She walks in, she's got this little, like, it's not quite a sidekick, it's almost more like a ward situation, like with Dick Grayson or something. So this is Ari. I don't know what the deal is, but whatever. She calls Catwoman Cell as she walks in, like Selina, and the handler doesn't know who that is, so he's kind of confused for a moment, because it turns out Selina's been using all sorts of fake names and identities and shit, and they just kind of shoot the shit a little bit, enough to establish that Selina doesn't really like this guy. She doesn't like the fact, really, that she's working for Bane. Seems pretty obvious, although she doesn't say it outright, as she doesn't want to be seen as some kind of malcontent or something. And before he goes, she suggests that these guys here in the magazine should be their next target. Again, all fine looking in terms of, like, being competent, not exciting. A little bit more interesting stuff going on with the panel construction here. I like this with the progression, but that's about it. He gets a bit more formulaic on this one here. I think that becomes a bit more well, no, okay, we're kind of going back now. So once he's gone, Selina changes out of her outfit because, of course, she does. And Jim Balent is going to draw as much of that as he can get away with. Again, though, interesting panels here, popping out of the panel borders. Overlapping panels pretty often. I don't mind that at all. But Catwoman does kind of chew out Ari here for almost letting slip what her actual name is. Apparently she got that thing from Dark Knight Rises, where she got the virus that wiped her name out of all the computer systems. So she doesn't need somebody just randomly saying her actual name in front of people that she works with. Nobody needs to know what her actual identity is. And we got a bit of a recap on how Selina met Ari as she was getting accosted by some dude with a beard. In 93, if you had a beard, that was some scumbag shit. You know what people hide in beards in 93? Secrets. That's what. And we learned that Ari moved to Gotham because she figured it would be safe to walk around in because that's the place Batman hangs out. Not really thinking the other way that Gotham is so bad that they need a dude running around in tights and a cape, beating the living shit out of thugs every single night to keep things even remotely in order. And, I don't know, just kind of a lot of chit-chat. But we end with Selina having held back a particularly fancy collar, which she fixes around one of her cats. And Ari here goes, you can't do that shit. And she goes, yes, I can. Catwoman's a big deal too, you know, as she sits here in her frilly dress. Yeah, nothing particularly great. Again, just, worth noting the overlapping panels. He does it a lot throughout. So that's something. So from here, we're going to cut to Bane. This is Bane. Bane's a pretty boring looking dude with a hairy back. And he's having a meeting with 5 or 6 of his thugs. They're discussing the fact that assassins keep getting sent after him. And, while he's all for eliminating the assassins when they come, the more important thing is to find out who's sending the assassins so that they can stop the endless tide of assassins. And they wonder about the fact that they can't find out Catwoman's secret identity, although Bane doesn't really care too much about finding out what that is. It's just, if we can find that out, that would be good. And, just kind of boring static shots, all for the most part on the same plane. It doesn't make any kind of sense to do a Dutch on any of these, although we do get at least one high-angle shot, which is something. It's a boring-looking shot, and it shows that Bane has, like, a shaved mushroom cut, which is, oh, man, that's no good at all. At least he's trying to put some stuff in the background here and there, although we do get a couple of completely blank background panels. And an ad for Batman Returns on Super Nintendo. And I don't know who drew this, but this looks more exciting. I like all of this. Like the finish. I like the design with the whole triangular. There's just good shit going on here. And back to this. Oh, well. So we're going to get a bit of a recap of Bane's origin here about how he was, he was raised in this hellish kind of environment and did a whole bunch of training and got juiced up on his Venom steroid shit. And then he broke Batman's back. That's Bane. So we end with Bane. Like I said, he's not too worried about finding out what Catwoman's name is, but he does want some kind of hold on her. So he sends in her handler, who has to put out his smoke, or else Bane will be upset. And he puts on his mask, although his chin completely disappears, so he might be pulling this over his knee. I'm not 100% for sure. And, not great looking stuff here. Like, this calls back to the Nightfall stuff, which was drawn by Jim Aparo, and it was drawn boringly by Jim Aparo. This is worse. This is drawn, like, not very well and boringly. I guess the angles he picks aren't too bad, but the finish isn't anywhere near where it needs to be. And we get a weird panel here where Bane's, I guess, lieutenant is, like, threatening Catwoman's handler. This looks very much like it should be Wolverine. Like, I don't know if he stole this from a Wolverine panel, or if he's just kind of doing Wolverine for a minute, and then, just kind of letting it continue. So the handler's here to basically ask for their money, because that's the deal. They bring in the jewels, Bane gives them money, and then he kind of spreads it out. And he also puts in Catwoman's proposition that these should be the next targets, says, she's got good instincts. Whatever she says is a good idea, that's probably a good idea. Nothing really to these panels, although, the storytelling's fine. That's one thing. I mean, there's nothing really confusing in this comic either. It's pretty much jobber stuff, except for the fact that anytime Catwoman comes on the scene, Jim Ballant is all like, oh, I get to draw boobs again. So Bane kind of dismisses him, now that he doesn't have any kind of further use for him. Although, while on his way out, Bane does suggest that Catwoman might try and lure him into being disloyal with her. Like, he hasn't seen any evidence of disloyalty yet, but, he figures, this could happen. She's headstrong. And the handler here doesn't really stick up for Catwoman. He's just like, okay, well, if I see anything like that, I'll let you know. And then we're going to cut to a bit with, I guess these are assassins. That's probably what the deal is with the spider on the dude's cheek. And apparently they've got a new theory on how to draw out Bane. They're going to attack what they perceive to be his woman, which is Catwoman. Okay. So once they attack Catwoman, they figure Bane will come out to defend her, and then they can deal with Bane. And yeah, just a pretty I don't know, kind of lackluster page. Like this stuff is fine. This is all solid stuff. Not a lot going on here. Using kind of really basic silhouettes to kind of keep it going quick. This almost looks like a Derek Robertson drawing. Same over here. And now we're reverting completely to like pre-established panel grids. Well, we're going back. We cut to that couple that were on the magazine that Selena was scoping out for their next heist. So they arrive and they've got some kind of, you know, not fantastic looking jewels. They look fine, I suppose, but it's not exactly like Jim Ballant had access to the internet to just go, okay, what's a fancy necklace look like? But, you know, keeping it clear what we're looking at least. Got a little bit of a Dutch here, a little bit of an overhead angle. That's all fine. These could be like Valentino pages, to be honest. They're fairly clear, and he does a little bit with the design to try and keep it a little bit interesting, but it's still not spectacular in any real kind of way. And Catwoman's handler is waiting in the alley where he gets ambushed by the assassin we saw earlier. So we get a fun bit here where the guy who is on the cover, this is Burke, okay? And he wanders into his apartment. They've got all the jewels just laid out there, ready for the evening. And the woman comes out, just in a towel. She got her hair all wrapped up. So obviously she's just stepped out of the shower. Makes out with Burke for a second. Says, okay, put the jewels on me. I'm going to go get dressed. And then walks out of the living room. And right when she walks out, that's when his actual wife walks in and goes, who the fuck were you just talking to? And it turns out that was Catwoman. It's like, okay, that's a fun little heist. And Jim Ballant does not waste the opportunity to draw Catwoman's boob front and center in the bottom panel here. And then they get home, and there was no real kind of danger. They just completely got away with it. Again, Jim Ballant takes an opportunity that really wasn't necessary to draw a boob right in the middle of the frame. And they figure the reason they got away with the heist was, I mean, they're approximately the same size, by which I assume they mean boob size. And Burke didn't have any reason to suspect that there would be anybody other than his wife in the apartment, so he just kind of went along with it. Sounds about right, I suppose. So the handler picks up the jewels, and he's going to leave right away, because outside is that assassin guy. So Burke sold out Selena to the assassin. Assassin came with a full-on rocket launcher. G.I. Joe tech by the looks of it. Sometime around the Eco Warriors era. And as soon as he cocks it, all the cats go running because they know when bazookas are in the neighborhood. And yeah, he fires on Selena's place and blows it up. Not the worst looking explosion. I've seen worse. That's not too bad. Gets a little bit of debris going on. Little plumes of smoke. There's some good stuff going on in there. But that is going to be the end of our issue. So, I mean, as far as the number one goes, it's okay, at least in terms of the story. It's nothing particularly special. I think I was under the impression that Joe Duffy is, you know, she's probably pretty good. I might have been thinking more along the lines of like Ann Nesenti or something, because, I mean, this is nothing special. And I've read a couple of Joe Duffy comics now. They're not impressive usually. I don't know what Joe Duffy is famous for. She's been around for a long time. Is it still Star Wars? Has she done anything like that's an improvement on that? I don't know, but the comics kind of fluff. Like it's, you know, it's not bad really in any way. It's just enough to get you through. And the art, yeah, it's pretty much house style, other than when Jim Ballant gets to draw boobs. Then he's a happy boy. It really does feel like boobs are the only thing that Jim Ballant does want to draw. Everything else, he just has to draw. I took a look around to see what Jim Ballant had done since, because I know he's active. But looking at his Wikipedia for a second, I thought that he had basically stopped drawing at the end of the 90s. It's like, wait, what? Did he just disappear? No, I almost missed something called Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, which he started in 2000, and which he is still doing today, 143 issues later. Judging by the covers, it's softcore porn, which should surprise nobody. It looks a bit more solid than he did back here. Maybe he's got an inker he's working with that complements his stuff better. Maybe he's inking his own stuff. I don't know. It looks like he might be inking his own stuff and writing it as well. I'm sure that he's crafting very intricate narratives. I mean, even if he's not, Spawn, as far as I can tell, has been rehashing the same plot points for 300 issues, and they forgot to throw in the boobs. So, I mean, let's give the man some credit, I suppose, for having at least one extra feature. Or rather, I suppose 2. So yeah, that's going to do it for cat number 1. It's like meh. It's not impressive in any kind of way. I assume it got at least a little bit better because, like I said, it did last for some time before Jim Ballant had to bounce. And hey, I mean, like, this was kind of the start of the bad girl thing. Influenced a whole bunch of guys to go, hey, I like drawing boobs too. And then that was like the next couple of years of comics, man. Which is fine, but you know, it's like, man, just give me a reason for the boobs. You know, I like my boobs to have context. Ironically, that would make for a great out of context quote. Anyway, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications so you know when the next one's coming out. Go over and subscribe on my Patreon. It gives you early access to everything I do, from the Blood Force stuff to the YouTube videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, as well as some Patreon exclusive content. You can also follow me on Instagram and DM me there for commissions, and you can join the Blood Force Discord server. I almost forgot those words. Anyway, that's going to do it. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.